this video, I want to go over everything we know so far about Namalsk. This video is an informational video explaining what Namalsk is and what it will probably bring to DayZ. To start off, Namalsk was made by Francu, who is now lead developer of DayZ. He created this map as a mod back on Arma 2 DayZ when DayZ Mod came out. He would then later be hired by Bohemia because I guess they really liked his work with what he did with Namalsk. Now, to clarify, Namalsk was made from the ground up. It's not like Chernarus, where there was already an existing map that was then ported over to a different game. Sumrak made Namalsk from scratch, from nothing basically. What is Namalsk, for the people who've never played it? Namalsk is a cold, snowy winter map with more survival aspects to it. The map was inspired by Stalker and used a lot of models from Stalker. Stalker is a series of games that released in 2007 to about 2009. And then the studio went broke, and they released all their models to the public, and anyone could use their models for whatever purpose they wanted. But that's the reason why Sumrak probably used some of these models, because they were free to use, and for the time being, they were pretty high quality, and served a good purpose for this map. Namalsk was also one of the first ever maps to introduce underground areas, something that we would have never seen before on DayZ Mod. Namalsk introduced three very interesting new things, all inspired by Stalker. One being blowouts, which is basically an emission type event. Now, there's a whole lore behind what an emission actually is, but for the simplicity of it, we'll just say it's an earthquake. You could obtain a device called the APSI, which was very rare, and when you would have it, you would not go unconscious when an emission would happen, which is like pretty OP, because when an emission would happen, you could basically push someone when they would go unconscious, and you would get a free kill almost every single time. We actually recreated these blowouts on DayZ Standalone on my Stalker Z server, which was highly inspired by the ones that Sumrak made.
Emission! 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 Let's go take shelter. Be back straight after. Let's go. Take cover! Take cover! Take cover!
Another thing is the Railgun, aka the Gauss rifle, also from Stalker. This is a rifle with no bullet drop-off, no bullet travel time. If you would shoot at someone, no matter where they are, how far they are, if you aim at them and you click shoot, it would always be a kill. It was by far the best weapon in DayZ ever. And the last thing is Bloodsuckers. These were mutants also from Stalker, ported straight over to DayZ, and they were very, very hardcore because you simply could not see them until they would attack you. Now, a few weeks ago, when Sumrak was streaming footage of DayZ 1.08 experimental, link to his Twitch in the description by the way, go check him out, I asked a few questions about Namalsk. He was kind enough to answer all of my questions I had. It was actually really cool connecting to the lead developer of DayZ just like that through a Twitch livestream. Isn't Twitch amazing, guys? It's just great. Anyways, I asked a few questions, a few interesting things, what Namalsk would look like, and a few other things. And he, like I said, he answered all of my questions. And we actually got to know a lot about what's coming for Namalsk.
All these weather effects we've caught. I don't know what we're talking about.
I think it's pretty obvious he's pretty sarcastic here. 1.08 brought new cold effects where it would be a lot colder up north near the new ski area. And yeah, it turns out that this has more meaning than just a ski area for Chernarus.
Do you plan to make the majority of the players' spawn points on the south and make places like Vorkuta the best places to it? So it's the completely the other way. I was actually talking about it in some status update last year, I think. The player spawn points are on the northern coast, all of them, and the Vorkuta City and the Lealovisko, mostly these two locations are the ones that are actually like somewhat safe place for new players. You will find some food in there and no dangerous animals and so on, so it will be like a newbie land in there, even though it's like it will have certain level of the difficulty. But yeah, like venturing down south is like, yeah, well, no food, you know, and other things.
So there is so much information in this clip already. And let me start off with the reason why I asked this. Because in normal Namalsk, you would spawn on the south and then work your way up to the north. This was Namalsk back on DayZ Mod. And there was no real point because on the south there would already be army bases, which you can loot and pretty much be fully geared 2 minutes after you spawn. So I'm pleased to hear that the spawns are now completely flipped to where you would spawn on the north, like something like Livonia, and then you would have to make your way down south where it would be gradually harder. And he even says at the end of the clip that there is no food down south. So if I show you the map of Namalsk, this is Namalsk. People always ask, how big is Namalsk compared to something like Chernarus? And I found a really nice picture that kind of explains it. This is Chernarus, and this is Namalsk. If you overlay them on each other, you get this. This is right here. All of this is Namalsk. So as you can see, Namalsk is pretty small compared to Chernarus. The spawns. So how it will be is that people will spawn on the north, so on this coastline here. There's one big city in Namalsk, and that is Vorkuta, which has a lot of apartments, some stores, a school, and we've seen some pictures of it. I'll probably show some right now. Here is Yelavisko, which doesn't have much either. And there's a small army base here and a small army base here. So, like, you spawn up north, you get your food, which will be in this main area, and then you make your way down south where it will drastically become harder and harder and harder. Now, you have the airfield here. People in most games think that airfields have the best loot. Well, in Namalsk, you'll pretty much find nothing there, which is kind of funny. Then you have Sebjan and Sebjan Mine, which have no great loot. Very minimalistic. There's a small army base here, and this is pretty much like the medium loot in this area. And then when you go down south, you can already see a lot of red. Army base here, army base here, army base here. 3 army bases, well 4 if you count this one, with Object A2 being an underground area where you could find the best loot in the game, including the Gauss rifle. You might be wondering, what's this on the right? This is an island, as you can see. Pretty cool. There was never really much stuff here. There's a little dock area, there's a train station, there's a hospital. I guess this is pretty much one of the only hospitals on the map, which is also very interesting. If you will need something like saline, there is not many places to go to for medical supplies. This was pretty much one of the only places. So that creates for very interesting gameplay as well, if this is still the same. I also asked him in a different clip, is he going to change the shape of the mouse? Is he going to add terrain? And he said this.
Do you make any adjustments to the map in terms of adding new areas, towns, or more terrain? New areas, yes. Plenty actually. Mostly in the south, which was quite empty. And more terrain. As a questionable part, like, do you count the sea ice? Vast amount of sea ice as a new terrain? Then if so, yeah, then it's are new parts of the terrain.
So I think what this means is that, let's say the island that I showed you on the map, which has 2 bridges, you can now just walk to over the ice, which would make the map feel a lot bigger than it actually is. And you could get to places quicker, but it's extremely open. And if someone can see you crossing a lake, you're a really easy kill with no cover.
Will there be blowouts emissions? No. There won't be emissions. Blowouts. The main reason behind that is that I'm basically the Namalsk in DayZ standalone is a sequel to one in Arma 2, and yeah, I've decided that it doesn't make sense now, given the storyline that I've put together for the standalone version. So not at the moment. Like, maybe if I would get bored, which I find hardly possible, but maybe later, but not now. Like, definitely not planned. right now. But I still have underground. I was like object A2. Yeah, it's well, but no, it's using my modulus. The object A2 was like redone completely. It's nowhere near it was before. It still feels like a mixture between Stalker Lab and Black Mesa. Lambda core. It's there, it's massive. Let's say this way. You can get lost in there and it's pitch black in there. Even during the noon.
So right now I will show footage of a underground lab from Stalker ported into DayZ. This is on my server Stalker Z, and this is one-to-one accurate with what the lab was on Stalker. Now for people who played Namalsk on Arma 2, you will recognize most of the models here and how it will look like, because these are literally the same models that were used by Sumrak for Namalsk on DayZ mod. Now another really interesting thing, which I am so hyped about, is that at the end of the clip he says it will be pitch black dark in there even at noon. So that means that he has done something to the lighting which will make it dark even when it's daytime outside, which has just never been done before in Arma 2 or Arma 3 or DayZ, and I'm very excited for this because this is something totally new.
In the base game and the platform, I mean, it's like the rebalance of the properties of the clothing. Better balanced across the clothing makes more sense, and yeah, well, you will basically be like dealing with like the usual DayZ gear most of the time. Like I've added some things, some retextures for clothing, so there is like some camo clothes, winter clothes, and so on. They have some additional like attributes like for better heat comfort than the vanilla stuff, for example, but